Well, we're here again with a guy that I call Rabid Rack of Rack Attack Gamer. You can find him on YouTube. A masked mystery man who now tells me that not only are space aliens real, and not only do they interact with us in our daily lives, but they are actually demons or fallen angels. Rabid Rack, you've got to be kidding.
Oh, I see what you're doing, Larry. You lost yesterday's argument, so you want to pick on this subject to make yourself look a little better.
That was your perspective that I lost it, but go ahead. So
Well, what would you like to know?
how, tell me how space aliens are actually, how you come to the conclusion that they are actually demons working nefariously against us, and actually they are fallen angels. Now, how did you arrive at, at that logical conclusion?
Logical conclusion. Well, first of all, I don't think we're going to get very much mileage out of this. It's a topic that is straightforward. Either aliens exist or they don't. Either angels exist or they don't. I mean,
And how have you conflated the two?
well, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
All right.
There is
I'm all ears.
A YouTube video out. Matter of fact, there's several, but the one in particular is about an hour and a half long, and they have a group of people who report being abducted by aliens. Matter of
Uh-huh.
fact, you yourself did an interview with Dr. David M. Jacobs
Right.
regarding this type of subject, and so whether they exist or don't, whether they're good, bad, or otherwise, this particular group of about I don't know 15 to 20 people expressed that when they were having these abductions happen to them,
Hmm.
that by calling on the name of Jesus, it would get the abductions and these alien creatures to stop abducting them, and that they would actually wince and take a step back, and they did not like the name of Jesus for some reason.
So from there, you conclude that there are actually demons and
Oh, you want to always rope me into conclusions. I never
I
conclude
mean,
anything. I give you a preponderance of what I've examined and what I've seen.
so your preponderance of evidence is really largely consisting of YouTube videos.
Exactly. Sure, why not? What we're talking testimony of 20 people on that particular video, and there's about two or three other videos that I know of that have other individuals or groups of individuals that also give testimony.
Okay, I know you're a deeply religious guy. Now, how does that tie into your religious convictions? The what you grew up with in childhood, what you believe now.
What
How does
I
that figure into it?
what I grew up in childhood was of the Catholic type religion, Christian religion, and from there, I had my doubts. I got heavily, deeply into science. I studied astronomy, astrophysics, subatomic particles, high energy physics. You name it, I pretty much got into it.
Yeah.
And when you start hearing about evolution and you start seeing, millions of years, dinosaurs, this and stuff like that, and then supposedly some people by calculating the in Deuteronomy in the Bible, the generations of people they calculate it out and they come to 6,000 years. So you got
Yeah.
a disparity between 6,000 years and millions of years for dinosaurs. So you start to have doubts. So I had my own doubts. I was getting into science. I'm thinking, boy, this ain't working out too good. But then, as just recent years, the last 5 years or so, maybe more, I can see that a lot of the Bible is coming true, or at least appearing to come true, especially towards quote unquote end times.
Revelations you're talking about.
Yeah, Revelations, and there's other places in the Bible that talk about end times.
Okay, but again, getting back to angels, demons, equating them with space aliens. What's the connection?
Well, that
Uh,
is the connection. What I've already said. This is why I said I
other,
don't know how much mileage we're going to get out of this one
I mean,
because
other than YouTube testimony, but I mean, you're convinced that they are demons, that they are fallen angels. You're convinced of that.
um, in my opinion, the preponderance of the evidence seems to head in that direction. Yes.
All right, you say that when you were younger, you were deeply involved in science, and you seem to put your faith, so to speak, in science, hard facts, things that we could deduce from.
I don't limit myself to. I don't limit myself to anything. I'll do
All right.
whatever I want to do when I
Well,
want to do it.
well, let me finish. You've told me before that when you were younger, you were more wedded to science than you were to religion and faith. But then that kind of shifted, and now you're not. Are you doubting science, or you just think that we still don't understand all the science behind some of this other phenomena?
But you talk of science as if it's some sort of revelation from God Himself.
I,
Science is science. Science has made millions of mistakes.
no,
Science at one time thought the world was flat. Science at one time thought the Earth was the center of the universe.
that was before the modern scientific theory.
It doesn't make no difference. It was the studying and
It
the
makes it.
consensus at the time, a group of people who believed in a certain way because of their advanced knowledge of certain subjects. They believed these things.
They believed along more along religious lines, the beliefs pertaining at the time, prevalent at the time. I mean, that's far from the modern scientific method that developed centuries after that. So
Well,
you
tell me about the modern
can't equate the
scientific
two.
method and how it's infallible. Are you talking about an infallible doctrine?
Science doesn't consider itself infallible. I mean, Darwin's theory of evolution has held up pretty much over the years
Or
since
has it?
since he wrote it. They have since not embellished it, but they're finding more dimensions to it as they go along. But the basic theory has still held up, and this is now a scientific method
Did
of
you
what can be
just
gathered empirically, and
did you just use the word theory?
science theory. That's what it's called. It doesn't mean that it's some kind of wild speculation being based on evidence.
But you
That's
did
another.
use the word theory.
But that's another thing that you guys throw out. You guys that well, it's a theory, so how could you can't be certain it's true. Scientific inquiry is always called a theory, but what happens is they're able to gather evidence and come to conclusions, a lot of this stuff is repeatable, and that's where they conclude that, as far as we could tell at this point, it is fact. It is true. It could be altered in the future. People are doing that, but still, it's based pretty much tightly on what's called a scientific method.
Did you ever hear of the missing
Speculation.
link?
Excuse me?
Did you ever hear of the missing link concept?
Yes, of course.
Explain it to me a little bit.
In the earlier days of archaeology, the scientists referred to the missing link as they could not find the gradations between uh, pre-humans and what was later developed into modern humans.
And is that
But
all you know about it? I mean, like, is that the central gist of what you know?
in the past 40, 50 years, they have found a series of gradations or missing links. So it's not like there was a sudden evolution from monkeys to modern humans. They have filled in those gaps.
All right.
That
Well,
old
let me address that then.
link no longer is current.
To my knowledge, from what I've been experienced researching and reading and whatnot, it's not just one missing link. It's everything. They can find no transition animals from going from, say, a wild wolf to a dog, or whatever. I mean, it's not just apes to humans; it's
No,
every single one.
that's not true.
Well, have you researched into that?
Yes,
Have you
yes.
researched into that particular statement I made that there's no transition fossils found of almost any? Well, no, I'll just say any creature. I won't even. I'll remove the word almost.
That,
Of
that,
any creature, there's no transition animals found.
that's totally inaccurate. That they found gradual evolutions.
So I challenge to people watching this video now to pause here
And look it
and
up.
look up missing links and look up transition fossils and see if it's just one or if it's many.
All right, you should also caution them to consider the source that they're getting this information from. Now, there's a lot of religiously tinged sites that are pushing this without
What, like the
real scientific
Smithsonian
thinking.
Institution?
Do they say that?
Is the Smithsonian Institution a religious site?
No, it's not. Are you saying the Smithsonian Institution adheres to what you're telling us now?
I'm saying that the Smithsonian Institution has been accused and maybe even proven to have hidden evidence of, say, giants. Did you ever hear of giants?
Yeah, but first of all, let me get back to one example you used about how there's no fossil evidence of how wolves became dogs. That's patently false. Dogs were the product of selective breeding from wolves, selective breeding by men. That's how dogs evolved or devolved from wolves. There's no mystery about that.
So there was an
So that
intervention.
example, so that example wasn't valid at all that you threw out.
So an intervention from humans created dogs from wolves.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll let the listeners go and pause again and look that up, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know.
But again, be careful where you look it up. You know, what is the credibility of the source? What is this?
Well, wait a minute now.
What?
How are you bestowing such honors upon certain places and removing honors from other places?
I believe in science. Now, science is not infallible. They do adjust their theories as more evidence comes in, but the scientific method is much more reliable, I think, than some kind of wild speculation, much of it with by religious groups, which deny evolution. They think some of
All
these
right.
think
All
that
right.
Earth.
Let's
Let me
stop there.
finish. Let me finish. Some of these groups say that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. There was a Garden of Eden. Mankind was created full bloom along with the rest of the animals. Everything was aboard Noah's Ark. On and on and on. You know, just absurd beliefs that have no credibility. I
So it
don't.
goes against your
Scientifically.
religion.
Excuse me?
It goes against your religion.
It goes against my religion?
Well, you have a philosophy, a worldview philosophy that you say it's certain way, and anything that goes against that, you're against.
What I'm basing it on scientific evidence as opposed to
Now,
religious or
if
fanciful
baloney on religious this and
speculation.
religious that, listen to me for a second without interruption. I am proposing this, that this scientific method is a religion unto itself. This 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 from the Big Bang, evolution, to all we know, what we call mainstream science, is in itself a religion, and that there are individuals that are protecting that religion. I again challenge the audience to pause the video and type into their search engine, Smithsonian Institution hides evidence of giants, or something to that effect.
Okay. And who's putting out that video?
It doesn't matter. It
Does
doesn't matter.
it doesn't
It's
matter?
no, no. And I'll tell you why it doesn't matter. What you want to do is you want to feed yourself information, and then from there you want to sort it out. Some of it's going to fall by the wayside because it's nonsense. I'll grant you that, but don't stop yourself from feeding yourself information.
All
Get it
right.
from wherever you want to get it, and if it looks reasonable and it matches up to other stuff, then it becomes reasonable.
I'm all for gathering as much information as possible, but you also have to keep in mind that some of the stuff may not be credible or reliable. I mean, take it from a variety of sources, but have the good sense to
Larry,
things objectively as much as
Larry,
you can. And
I've been there. I've been where you're at, but I went beyond where you're at.
all right, let me ask you this: how old is the Earth? 6,000 years old, as many religious people believe.
Again, you're trying to do like what you did yesterday. You're trying to tie me down to a definite statement. I don't work that way.
How old is the Earth?
I'll tell you what kind of individual I am.
How old?
I'm a 1% to 99%. I don't go 0 and I don't go 100.
How old
So
is the Earth? Can you
I don't know how old the Earth is, and
Well,
neither do you. And you know where you get your information from? You get your information from people who tell you how old the Earth is.
okay.
Same thing with me.
All right, let's do a ballpark figure
Except
here.
I widen my reach.
Is it 6,000 years old? Is it 100,000 years old? Or is the Earth several billion years
I'm
old.
I'm fine with keeping more than one thing in my mind.
So it
That
might be
religion says it's roughly around 6,000 years old because they went through the generations, they added all the ages together, and they come up with something around 6,000 years. Now, hold on, don't be interrupting. All right, so that's one thing I have in my mind. The other thing I have in my mind is straight up science, with carbon 14 dating, which is uh, very fallible. And if you don't believe me, again, pause the video, look up carbon 14's fallibilities, and see if I'm right or wrong.
also, so you think it's a good possibility, at least a possibility, that the Earth is only 6,000 years old?
Larry, I think it's a possibility that you're an alien from who knows where. I mean, anything could be a possibility. It depends on degree of possibilities.
How about
Do I
Noah's Ark? Did you believe Noah had an ark where all the animals came aboard that we have today, descendants from?
again, there is sporadic evidence that an ark exists and it's located on top of a mountaintop.
That's a possibility. I'm
There
on
you
board.
go. There, that's the way to
I'm
be,
on
right
board
there.
with that as a possibility. And there's also increasing scientific evidence that there was a great flood in that area at that time during that era.
Now,
And,
worldwide, Larry, worldwide flood.
well,
There's evidence of a worldwide flood from various cultures all throughout the world.
all right, let's say worldwide, let's say confined to the Mideast there, whatever, evidence of increasing scientific evidence of a flood, which, it could have resulted in somebody building an ark, bringing some animals aboard for food, for survival after landfall, again, after the rain subsided. It doesn't mean that Noah built an ark that contained all the animals that we have today as descendants. I mean, do you believe that's a possibility?
Again, you're trying to nail me down. I don't do that. I'm a different type of person. I take information in and I keep the information that seems to be somewhat good, and I'll just get rid of the other stuff that I don't seem to like anymore or it doesn't seem to work anymore. For me, evolution can stand side by side with creation without having any conflict. Perhaps evolution was the method of creation. Maybe there's something in there. What I'm basically saying to you is I don't know. But then again, you don't either.
Well, I do know this. The Earth is more than 6,000 years old. I think that's obvious.
And how do you know that?
You can, some of the oldest living creatures are several hundred years old. Some of the trees are what, close to 1,000 years old. So you're saying that there's only 10 generations of redwood or sequoia trees back to the founding of the Earth. I
And are
mean,
you telling me that a God that could create a universe this vast cannot plunk a tree down fully made?
you could believe anything is possible, but
I'm just bringing you different angles to consider. I ain't saying I believe all this stuff. I
all right,
told you that I was very strict with science. I love science. I'm big on science. I'm
all
just trying to say that I can understand that there's a possibility of other things. And to always go back to what I tell you, I believe that there is a cabal of people, and do I have to say New World Order again? I believe there's a cabal of people that are trying to steer education of people and to keep people dumbed down and to only tell them what they want the people to believe.
What I find disturbing is the religious and political use more and more of some of these beliefs to deny science for political and religious ends, where now climate change is being denied, and the evolution is being denied. Kids are being taught that science is only an opinion, that there's no solid conclusions.
Let's start with climate change. Where do you get your information that the climate is changing and we're all what? We're going to be dead in 12 years? Is that it? We're all going to be flooded out?
See, what you're doing is you're exaggerating some of these conclusions to make the whole thing sound absurd. Which is a form of the conspiracy theory method, where,
I am a conspiracy theorist. I love it.
well,
It's great because it means I have a thinking mind and I have an open mind.
what you're doing then is using the same technique that you say you resist. It's a trick to say if somebody doesn't believe in the Warren Commission's conclusions of the Kennedy assassination, they're a conspiracy theorist. And then they'll spin all kinds of crazy alternative scenarios to make any kind of doubt seem ridiculous. So that's why I find this science denial now increasing.
Oh, I'm a science denier now. You're going to put labels on this.
There's a lot of denial of science, and it's even infused itself into some of the
All right, hold on, hold on. Do you ever think
without
that you could be being lied to, Lar? That there
without
may be an ulterior motive to climate change?
without science, where would we be? You know, we wouldn't be living in a modern world. You know, whether that's good or bad is a subject for something for some other studies. Whether in terms of ethics and all that. But I mean, in terms of
Again, I challenge the audience to pause the video again and look up David Blood and Al Gore and look it up under Forbes, because David Blood and Al Gore being the one that came out with this climate change thing with his little movie, what was it? Inconvenient Truth.
an inconvenient truth, yeah.
Oh, well, wonderful. I mean, that's a nice ad. I mean, it could be an hour and a half long ad or whatever the running time of Inconvenient Truth is.
Well,
However, it's
that's
a nice ad for him to get carbon taxes, him and David Blood to make a killing out of this climate
there's
change thing.
another error in your thinking. That's a red herring that's thrown in there by the fossil fuel interests to
So
tamp
you're
down
willing to
effort.
So you're willing to say that we could be being lied to by the fossil fuel interests, but you cannot willing to say that we're being lied to by the people that would stand to make trillions of dollars from carbon taxes.
Here's another false conclusion on your part. You're conflating what. Let's assume that Al Gore seized upon this to make money, and he doesn't believe in it himself. But he sees this as a money making and maybe a political opportunity. That's irrelevant to whether climate change is actually occurring. I'm not basing my conclusion that it is occurring on whether Al Gore is on board with it or not. I'm basing it on the data that bona fide scientists have come up with. And the key is, they
You
talk
mean like Michael Mann? You mean like Michael Mann, the hockey stick chart person?
that a lot of that. Now, I don't have an intense, detailed knowledge of that, but the hockey stick chart, I think, has since been modified. The scientists have said that some of that data was incorrect. But the key, as far as I could understand, with climate, why climate change is real and it's not a natural cycle, is the rapidity of the rise in temperature, which is not natural, can't be accounted for through any natural cycles. But we're getting off the
Can't
subject
be
here.
accounted for by the sun?
No, no,
How do you know this?
because distance from the sun, sunspots, and all that, they've made those comparisons with the rise in temperature and all that. It doesn't equate. Doesn't equate. So again, our basic debate here is whether science should continue to have the credibility that I think it does have, or should it be eroded by political and religious extremism elements that are denying science
Perhaps
all
science itself
to
is
interest.
Perhaps science itself is being eroded by political and religious extremism just from the powers that be of science. Like I said, but that's a Smithsonian Institution thing. Uh, if you go back as far as the Bible, now you saying that the Bible, or we've talked before about this, you say that the Bible is what, a fantasy book or myths
I'm saying,
storybook?
well, I'm saying a lot of it is based on the mores of the time, the social norms of the time,
In
and
in uh,
and
in
some of it is based on legend, and some of it is based on embellished stories, not necessarily with an evil intent.
in Genesis 6, they talk about fallen angels coming and having sex with the daughters of man,
Yeah.
and the offspring being men of renown, whatever. And there is this word thrown into the mix, and I'm not a Bible expert, but Nephilim
Uh-huh.
and supposedly the offspring in some certain circles. There are small alternatives to this, but let's say the majority of Bible uh, experts will say that the giants were the result of the union between fallen angels and human women. And if that's true, let's just suppose for a minute, if that's true, then there should be fossilized evidence. And if you go back into history, and again, I'll challenge anybody to pause the video and start looking into this, is that evidence of giants has been found and put into papers throughout history, and all of a sudden we don't even know anything about giants anymore. The only thing we know is storybook, Jack and the Beanstalk, and stuff like that. But supposedly there was a reality of giants and giant skeletons being found throughout history, and it would be printed in newspapers throughout America and elsewhere. And this has been hidden. Why has the history been hidden?
Let me point out something to you about the Nephilim, about angels coming down and breeding with women. What does the Bible say that they found the daughters of men pleasing, and they interacted with them. Now, see, here's the crux of our difference, Rack. Uh, I believe it is possible that space aliens did come down at one point and interact with the human race. And the 2001 scenario where they actually genetically modified advanced primates, I'm open to that possibility. But I'm not on board with just grabbing on to some of the speculation and saying that's probably what happened. Now, if space aliens did come down, interact with humans, maybe the religious mentors of the time interpreted the space aliens as angels, but they might have just been aliens. So here again, I'm saying I'm open to these possibilities, but not where people just seize upon something according to their own personal.
According to the Bible, and if you read it thoroughly and you pick it apart, angels, as you're saying, had the appearance of men. Matter of fact, I believe that's almost an exact quote.
Yeah.
So the appearance of men.
And God made man in his own image and likeness. That's also intriguing.
Okay.
What did God or a superior alien create mankind in their own image?
Give me the exact value of pi.
You can't get an exact value of pi.
Right. But yet it's used in space shots and all sorts of equipment that they build. And what they do is they take an approximate value, right?
Yeah.
A good enough approximate value. So what you're saying to me is that science could use pi in approximate and be fine with it, and everything's fine. But I cannot take things in approximation.
That's not a valid analogy.
Oh, sure it is.
They use pi to this whatever degree it is, which is accurate enough for what they have to achieve mechanically, engineering, scientifically. It doesn't mean your analogy that you should. Again, Rack, I'm saying be open to all these possibilities,
Yeah.
but sift it through concrete evidence if it exists before you make a conclusion that that's what it must be, or a preponderance of evidence.
Do you hear me making a conclusion? The only one I hear making a conclusion here is you saying that this stuff is ridiculous.
You're talking about preponderance of evidence, like evolution and all that. You're all wet on that, to tell you the truth.
In your opinion?
I think I've studied it enough to know what I'm talking about. Like your analogy about the missing link. They have found these gradations. They keep moving back the rise of modern man further and further as they find more and more fossils.
Do you know that there's been fossils of mammoths found with still meat intact and stuff like that?
Yes.
Okay.
What's your point there?
Well, how old are the mammoths?
The mammoths walked the earth until I think 10, 15,000 years ago. They're very recent. in geological time. So yeah, there's no mystery there. What, did you think I was going to doubt that they would have found that?
No, but what I'm saying is, if you're saying that the meat could last 15,000 years, that's quite an achievement.
Uh, I don't follow your point at all with that. What are you talking about?
Fresh meat from mammoth skeletons. Okay, you're saying that 15,000 years, it doesn't make you say, "Wow, that fresh meat is found on these bones."
Rack, what you're leaving out, you see, this is another thing. You leave out certain information to shape the story the way you want, the conclusions that you want. The thing that you left out there is that they were frozen in tundra or wherever in ice sheets, and that's why not only were their bodies preserved, but the contents of their stomach. What's the mystery about that?
Are you aware that there's someone, I don't remember her name, but she's been ostracized by her own peers because she has found evidence of meat on dinosaur bones, and that they are not in frozen tundra somewhere off in like Montana or someplace like that. And I wish I knew her name so that the people could look it up.
What are you
But I
saying?
don't.
What are you saying? Fresh meat on dinosaur bones, and therefore what?
How old are dinosaurs?
Oh, you think they're much more recent then? Than
I'm
million.
not saying that. She's saying that, and that's why she was ostracized.
Well, maybe there's good reason to ostracize her. Where she says the dinosaurs walked the earth, as that Noah's Ark park that they have down south, where they have these dioramas of mankind walking the earth with dinosaurs, 6,000 years ago.
My worldview, my worldview is to absorb as much as I can, sift through it, and I never go like 100% or zero. I kind of just keep everything in my head and see where it goes. Your worldview is to exclude anything that is not mainstream science.
No,
That's for me is a religion that you have.
no, my worldview is use a scientific approach to gather evidence and see if A plus B equals C, see if it makes sense logically and scientifically and evidentiary, with things that we can measure and analyze rather than this wild speculation. I'm all open to all kinds of speculation, but you've got to start thinking out. You have to, after a while, you have to sift through all this information that you say that you're open to and find out what the preponderance of credibility is.
And
And
I'm telling you that that preponderance is not as strong as you think it is for hardcore science. That there are things that go against hardcore science that you seem to not know about or ignore.
okay, all right. Rabid Rack of Rack Attack Gamer on YouTube. I think this is pretty good for this evening before we start fisticuffs there. But I look forward to our next segments, our next adventure in thinking.
All right. Sounds good.
See you next time.
Yeah.